So, what is business development? Well, business development, also referred to as BD or biz dev, is a relatively new profession, often confused with marketing or sales. You see, the marketing and sales professions have existed for hundreds of years. For example, professional marketing started in 1561, and professional sales started in 1840. The business development profession didn't start until 1923, when the first business developer was hired by the San Francisco Stock Exchange. Today, business development is one of the fastest growing professions. Okay, so what does business development actually mean? Our definition of business development is customer and community advocacy that creates corporate growth. Now, that's a pretty simple definition, but it's wrapped around some deep concepts. So let's explain this definition with some basic principles. Okay, there are 3 ways to grow a business. 1, you can increase the number of new customers. 2, you can increase the number of times a customer buys from you.
And 3, you can increase revenue from existing customers.
While you might not be responsible for acquiring new customers, everyone is responsible for keeping and growing customers. Okay, now let's dig deeper into this concept of corporate growth. For a corporation to grow, you need a community and customers. Overlap of the corporation, community, and customer creates the corporate brand. And some people think a brand is a corporation's logo, but actually the corporation's brand is much bigger than its logo. So what is a corporation's brand? Well, a brand is like a container of trust that is filled with the promises you keep. So how do corporations actually fill this container? Well, corporations do this by advocating or helping their customer and their community and then delivering on promises. Okay, by now you can see how trust is critical for growing a corporation, but how does trust building actually work? Well, humans, like every living organism on this planet, have a biological imperative to survive and thrive, and organisms do this by engaging with their environment. As organisms engage with one another, they have 4 possible responses of fight, flight, freeze, and fuse. If an organism detects a threat to its survival, it either fights, it takes flight, meaning it escapes, or it freezes. If another organism supports growth, well, then it fuses, meaning it joins with that organism. These fight, flight, freeze, and fuse responses start in the limbic system of your brain. The limbic system contains the amygdala, and it receives signals from your senses, like your eyes, ears, and skin, to detect threats. And when the amygdala perceives a threat based on past traumatic experiences, it automatically transmits signals to the hypothalamus to stimulate the autonomic nervous system. Now, the autonomic nervous system consists of the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system controls the fight or flight responses, and the parasympathetic nervous system controls the freeze and fuse responses. These automatic responses are then instantly sent from the base of your brain to the bottom of your torso via your vagus nerve network, and it automatically activates your vital organs to respond with a fight, flight, freeze, or fuse response. Now, your brain automatically perceives these autonomic responses as emotions. For example, the fight response is perceived as anger, the flight response as fear, the freeze response as apathy, and the fuse response as love. Therefore, the limbic system not only controls your customer's automatic reaction to friend or foe, but it also controls whether they love or hate your corporation. Therefore, keeping your customer calm in a trusting relationship so you can both survive and thrive is absolutely critical for corporate growth. Okay, so how do you create trust? Well, you do this by delivering a product to the customer as promised. This visible proof of delivery on a promise is what we call the truth. When the brain witnesses the truth, it automatically triggers a brain chemistry process that builds trust with your customer. You see, in 2008, the University of Zurich implemented a trust game study. In this study, they found participants produced oxytocin when they felt trusted. And when participants were shown increased levels of trust, their brains produced even more oxytocin. In another experiment, they found that increased oxytocin resulted in feelings of empathy. So as oxytocin levels increase in your brain, it then triggers the creation of serotonin that dampens the amygdala's fight or flight response. Therefore, increased trust decreases feelings of anxiety and increases feelings of comfort and calm. Another really exciting study found that if people kept their promises, like delivering a product on time or keeping a commitment, then the brain's reward centers send dopamine to the limbic system. Now, dopamine is the chemical that propels people toward a specific purpose. So let's summarize all of these scientific studies by saying that customer happiness and loyalty is directly linked to three key ingredients: truth, empathy, and purpose. So when we talk about how much value we give our customers, it's very important to remember that customers measure value based on how much purpose, empathy, and truth they receive from a corporation. And it's easy to remember these three key ingredients because the first letter of all three words spell P-E-T, or pet. Okay, now as you continue to give purpose, empathy, and truth to your customers, it activates what we call the brand trust flywheel. It's called the flywheel because the more purpose, empathy, and truth you give your customer, the more momentum it creates in the relationship. At this point, we've covered a lot of very powerful principles, so let's summarize what we learned so far. The brand is a container of trust that you fill with promises you keep. The three drivers of purpose, empathy, and truth produce brain chemicals that increase customer trust. Continual customer advocacy, meaning continually helping your customer and community, is what powers the corporation's brand trust flywheel with more and more momentum that grows the value of your corporation.